Hello friends, I'm Vikram from eZeon Technologies. Welcome to my project work series based on Spring Framework. In my previous video session, I discussed about the project study, requirement, databases, architecture, project workflow, etc. And in my current video session, I'm going to talk about the project configuration using NetBeans IDE, and I will configure a Spring MVC here through the pure annotation strategy. I'm not going to use your XML file to configure the web application. So let's begin from project configuration. So open this NetBeans IDE. So before moving to the Spring configuration, I would advise you to create a web project here from this new project, and you should create a web project from the Maven category. I'm going to use Maven build tool here. So this is my web application. I'm going to select and name your project. So this is my contact application. Let me call this Spring contact application, and I'm going to save in my desktop. This is correct. And look at this, it's a group ID is representing the company, so I'm using here reverse domain. This is correct. And you can create here packages, so let me name my packages here one by one. So initially this is the company and the project name for the company. So contact application, I'm writing here C app is your contact application project, and just create that. And we have to select here Tomcat server I'm going to use here, and just finish. A blank project is created here using Maven. Just wait for some moment. My project is being created here. Just a moment. It's taking some time. Okay, all set. The project is created here. I advise you to run this project before integrating Spring, so that we can ensure the initial configuration. So let me run this. I will get one default page here. I will get a result from this default page, and this hello world message will be displayed. So let's run this blank application. Before configuring Spring, I advise you to test your blank project configuration. So if everything is correct in the initial setup, then I will come to the Spring integration here. So what are the errors I'm getting here? No class definition. So these are, I think, old errors. Just a moment. I'm getting some old errors there, and I could see the result here from the index.jsp page. This is fine, but I'm getting some old error from the Tomcat log. So let me clean up the log first. So this is my Tomcat server being used here, and just clean up the log and re-execute this. So stop the server and then clean up all the previous logs. Okay, now again run this program. So this is the hello world message I could see here, and look at this, I'm not able to see any of the error here. So everything is fine. The project is configured. It's a blank project. It is configured right now. Now it's time to add Spring framework, but before that I'm going to categorize my classes here. So I will create multiple packages to organize my classes here. So let's begin from the controller. So I'm going to create one package here to keep my controller. So I will keep my all controllers here. Then create one more package here for DAOs, data access objects will be there. Then we required here domain classes. Sorry, I made a mistake here. Just a minute. So DAOs will be there, and we required here row mapper, so I call it RM is representing row mapper. And then I required here domains. Domain classes will be there, it's a domain class. And then I required services will be there, so this is services. And then I required here commands will be there to communicate with the form, so command will be there. DTOs will be there for customized data reporting, so DTO data transfer objects required. And then I required here a configuration package, so this is my configuration. Spring MVC I will configure in this package. And then I required one more package here, which is utility package. So this utility package I can use to keep some utility classes. If required, I will keep the classes here. If not required, I will keep it blank. Right, so almost these are the categories where I will keep my classes. So if we required something new, we can add on here new package, so don't worry, this is enough for now. So I'm going to start Spring MVC configuration from this configuration, right, from this inside this config package. So before moving there, let's have a look at the important thing. These are some configuration details we required. So look at the stuff we need to configure here. So we required a class here which is called Spring Root Configuration. This class will contain beans related to the services and repository. DAOs, services, middle tier configuration will be done here, like transaction, message oriented middlewares, emails, like that. So this is a kind of your application layer, this is a kind of your business layer. So this Spring Root configuration for the business layer configuration, right? And after that we need to create here MVC layer. We need to configure the MVC layer, which is your Spring Web configuration class, and this class will extend this Web MVC configuration adapter. And we need to do some coding here, I will talk about that later on. So we required this root configuration for business layer configuration, business related beans, and this is your web related beans. So after that, these two things, the Spring Root configuration and Spring Web configuration, these two will be used by another class, which is ContactAppDispatcherServletInitializer. So DispatcherServlet is a front controller here, so that servlet must be initialized first to configure the whole Spring MVC framework, to prepare the inversion of control container, which is your Spring framework. So this initializer will extend the abstract annotation config DispatcherServletInitializer parent class. So by extending this, we'll get a new class here. This will have some methods, required some method like get root configuration class. So this root configuration class will be your Spring Root configuration, and the next method will be get servlet config classes. So this will be your Web MVC layer. So this class, this part will be taken here. And now dispatcher servlet required a mapping, so we can provide the mapping for the front controller, which is used to receive the request, incoming request, and actually it is a URL pattern for the dispatcher servlet. So then there is one more method, it's a on startup, and this method you can use if required. It is not necessary to override this method, but if required we can do some additional configuration for the servlet context object here. So these four methods we will use here, and this will be your whole configuration, right? So let's begin from the code. One more thing I would like to show you before going to the coding. Just have a look at this. This is very important. A dispatcher servlet will be configured here, and in this under this dispatcher servlet configuration we required here web application context, which is your MVC module, and root web application context will be there, and this root web application context will combine controllers, view resolvers, handler mappings. So these three are the major components of Spring Web MVC framework, and we can add on here services and repositories. So all these things, the whole stuff will be configured under the dispatcher servlet. So this will create a common factory, this will create a common IOC container where all the beans will be available, beans will be present, and they can be configured, they can be reused with each other, right? So this is the diagram I have taken from the reference manual. Look at this URL is documentation.docs.spring.io, and this is the official documentation of the Spring framework. And look at this, let's have a code. The very first thing is I'm going to create here this root configuration, Spring root configuration class under this config package. So I'm going to follow this document. Spring root configuration I'm creating here, and I need to use some annotation here like configuration, component scanning, and you can use import resources if required. So this import resources will be used when you have some additional configuration file in XML format, and that XML can be loaded with the annotation configuration. So you can combine the strategy, you can combine your metadatas, XML and annotations. But I'm not going to use import resources here. I just want to configure and component scan. These two I'm going to use. So now just a moment, so let me write this at the rate configuration. Sorry, this will not work. Configuration is not available. Before that you have to configure dependencies. So this is your pom.xml file, and you need to configure here dependencies. Then only I will get the suggestion from NetBeans. So just a moment. So I have copied all the required dependencies here. So these are the dependencies I'm going to copy in my project. So under this dependencies tag element, you can copy your Spring related dependencies. Let me describe all the dependencies one by one. Just have a look at this. So this is the Java EE API, and this is the Spring context layer, correct? Now this is the MVC layer I have added here, and this is the JSTL related configuration, and here I will get the JDBC because I am going to use JDBC template API. So Spring JDBC I have configured. I'm using connection pool DBCP, which is Apache connection pool DBCP2 I'm going to use here, and this is the version, you can check here. And I have added here MySQL driver. This is the MySQL JDBC driver, and 5.1.40, right? So these are the dependencies. If we required some more dependencies, I will add on here. So this is ready. Now look at this. When you added all the dependencies, they will be downloaded in your project and visible here. Look at this, all the jar files are now present here because you have configured the dependencies. If it is not available here, don't worry, just do the build with dependencies. So when you do the project using this build with dependencies, all the Maven libraries will be downloaded in your local repository, right? And they will be ready to use in your project. So this is ready. Now you will get here suggestion, and this configuration is imported from this context annotation configuration. This is correct. Now I'm going to tell Spring to search the classes from this location. Component scan I'm going to use, and I'm going to specify the base packages, and Spring will scan the classes from in.eZeon package and all its child packages. So this is the root package I'm going to specify, and Spring can scan all the components from this area. So this is ready, configuration is done. Here we have to configure few things. I'm not going to do, but in next video probably I will add here new beans. So this here you have to add services, DAOs, data source, email sender, etc., or some other business layer beans. So you can add on here new beans if required, right? But I don't have any such beans in the first session. In next video we'll add on the beans here. So this is class is ready. Now it's time to go to this part. I'm going to configure, just a moment, okay. I'm going to configure this Spring Web configuration by extending Web MVC configurer adapter. So just come to this, close this. Even this is not required, and here I'm going to create the another MVC layer configuration. So this is Spring Web configuration under the config package, and here we have to add, this is configuration, and then component scan can work here. This is component scan, and specify the base package, and base package will be in.eZeon package will be used to search the classes, controllers and all. And now I'm going to enable here Web MVC. So enable Web MVC, this is important. So this will activate your MVC configuration, MVC module. After that, if you required, you can add one more configuration here, which is import resources, but I'm not going to use that. And the important thing is Web MVC configurer adapter you have to extend here. So extend Web MVC configurer adapter, right? So this is ready. In this area there are two major things we have to add here. One is how to handle the static resource. So we need to add here one method, which is add resource, because Spring will not allow any of the resource to access on the JSP page if it is not configured. So to access your static resources like style CSS files, JavaScript files, or some other static resources, they must be added here, then only Spring will permit. So I will do that in coming session, but because I'm not going to add any of the static resource in the first video, in next video I will cover up that. And one more method I have to add here, as it is a web layer, as it is a MVC layer, three major components will be present in this layer. One is a controller, so Spring can search the controller from this package through the annotation scanning. And one more thing I am going to add here, view resolver and handler mapping. So handler mapping will be done through the annotation, and view resolver I am going to add here. So this is a view resolver, view resolver component. So this is your view resolver, sorry, just a moment, let me import this. So view resolver is imported here. This is view resolver I am importing, and this is a bean actually. So this is a bean, and now I'm going to use here internal resource view resolver. So this is the view resolver I'm going to use. VR stands for view resolver, and let me create the object for this internal resource view resolver. Internal resource means the resources available inside the private location. So is there any private directory available here? So what is the private directory? Private directory is nothing but your web information folder, so create that also. So web inf is your private location, and this is the location known as internal resource, because no one can access the contents from browser directly if it is available under this web information directory, right? So here I'm going to add one more folder, which is a view folder. My JSPs will be added here inside this, so that no one can directly touch my JSPs. It is good for the security. So keep your views under the private location. So web information is a private location, that's why it is known as internal resource. Okay, now, and I'm going to use here set view class. I'm going to use here JSTL. It's a JSTL view I'm going to use. So JSTL views will be there, because inside the JSP I can use JSTL code. And this is view resolver dot set prefix. You have to configure. Prefix defines the location where JSPs are available. So my JSPs are available under this web inf slash view. Here I will copy my views. This is ready, and then I have to write here suffix. So vr dot set suffix. Suffix will be the extension of your view. So my extension is .jsp, and return the view resolver here. So right, this bean is ready. It's all set now. Right, these things are all available. So what I have done till now, I have configured this, I have configured this, and now it's time to integrate both the things and combine in this contact application dispatcher servlet initializer. So let me create that. One more file I have to do here. I have to create that. So these two files I created, and one more I am going to create here, and this is my contact application dispatcher servlet initializer. So my front controller will be initialized by this particular class, right? So just finish this, and what important you have to do here, you have to extend from the abstract annotation configuration dispatcher servlet. So you have to extend from the abstract annotation configuration dispatcher servlet initializer, correct? And here you have to override few methods. You have to provide the definition for few methods, right? This is your root configuration. You have to return the root configuration class here, and there can be multiple root configurations, so that's why it is returning here class array. So let me return here new, say class. I'm going to create this class and create this, just pass that spring root configuration dot class. So this is actually my business layer, and similarly you have to return here, just a minute, similarly you have to tell your web layer. So this is your web specific beans will be there, the spring web configuration, right? So both are ready. Now you have to tell the mapping for your dispatcher servlet, because dispatcher servlet is a front controller, and it will receive a specific pattern of URL. So tell the pattern. So there can be multiple patterns here, because as we have seen that servlet can allow multiple mappings. So map here this slash. So my front controller will receive all the request. In fact, you can pass here multiple patterns, like you can use here admin slash star star, something like this, but I'm going to just use this, right? It's all done. One more method you can add on here if required in future, and sometime when you write a complex web application, or you are upgrading your old application to the new application, probably you required one more method here on startup. So this is very important, and this first method call, don't ignore this, must present. If it is missed, it will not work, right? So this is required, and the great thing you will see here, you will get here application servlet context object, and this servlet context object is nothing but a object for your whole web application. Means you can configure here some global resources or some global objects if required, as we have done in servlet. So configure global task here if required. So I just want to keep it here because probably you may require some configuration, but there is a scope, and this is very important. Don't miss this line. If you delete this, the framework will not work. So this is actually the master place where the framework is working around, right? So this is all set now. So it's ready. Now I'm going to create a controller and test. So create a class here. Let me call this a test controller, and this test controller will be annotated using this controller annotation, and I'm going to add a method here. This is public, and let me write here a string, and let's say it's hello world. So I'm going to map this request mapping and specify the URL. So this will be called using a URL here. This is test/hello world. So this is for testing. I will use this URL test/hello, right? So when I request from the browser using test/hello, this hello world will be called, and it will return a view name. So my view will be hello. So basically this view will be your JSP. And how it is resolved? It is resolved using ViewResolver, where prefix will be there. It is something like this, slash prefix will be added here, web information slash view, right? Then your return value, this hello slash then JSP will be suffix. So this part is prefix and this part is suffix, and this is your view name. So this is a view name you have to return here. It's all done. So you should have one JSP here. So add one JSP in this view folder because your controller is requesting here. So this is hello JSP will be there. So this is the JSP created here, and let me write this hello world, and I'm going to write here a small greeting. Welcome to eZeon Technologies, and you will get a message here. Spring MVC is ready, right? So this is what the message will get on the screen. Now probably all set here. Try to run this. Just a moment. Okay, this is the index page. This is the index page called here. Look at this. This is the index page called by default. This index page is called. I have to access a controller here, and how that will be called, we given a mapping here, test/hello. What is wrong here? Test/hello. What is wrong? What's the problem? Any error? No error, everything is correct. So just a moment. We have added here controller. We have done here, we have added here URL also, and this method is there. Everything is correct, seems correct. And what is missing here? Spring configuration is added properly. ViewResolver is mapped here properly, and initializer is also there, and test controller is mapped through the controller, correct. Let me do one clean and build. Sometime your changes might not be getting updated here, so do the clean build and again run your application. Just a moment, let the process finish. Okay, now run this. Just a moment, I'm going to call here this test slash hello. Okay, this is fine. You can see this message, and here your controller is called, and controller has delegated call to the JSP. So look at this. Hello world, welcome to eZeon Technologies, and Spring is ready. Yes, it is ready to work on the project. The configuration is all successfully done. So one important thing I can summarize here. So this is very important diagram. If you follow this, probably it's not difficult to configure. So this Spring Root configuration is your service and repository layer. So all the beans related to the business logic or middle tier configuration will be provided here. And then you need to provide here web configuration. Three major components are present in this layer, which is your controllers, handler mappings, and view resolvers, right? And also you have to map your static resources here, and these two classes then you have to finally integrate with the DispatcherServletInitializer. So DispatcherServletInitializer will be loading your both the configurations, right? And you have to tell the mapping, and you can use this on startup method if required. So this is very important. And one more thing, if you look at the diagram, this one, so we have already discussed about this architecture, right? And this part, this is your actually middle tier service component I have configured through Spring Root configuration. So this is actually done inside the Spring Root configuration, and this part, this is your web part, Web MVC layer, and this is configured through the Spring Web configuration, right? And that's why I have added here two files. Look at this, I have added here two files. So this is for the business layer and this is for the MVC layer, and both are combined here. Okay, so that's all for this video, and in next video we'll add here more things in this project. We'll talk about the actual coding part, and slowly we are moving to the objective. But if you have any of the queries related to the configuration or related to this video, you can ask in comments, and you can subscribe my channel to get more updates. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in next video. Thank you.